2021. And I will read the public charge. The Board of Commissioners asks its members and citizens to conduct themselves in a respectful, courteous manner, both with the board and fellow citizens. At any time, should any member of the board or any citizen fail to observe the public charge, the chair will ask the offending person to leave the meeting until that individual regains personal control. Should decorum fail to be restored, the chair will recess the meeting until such time that a genuine commitment to the public charge is observed. I will ask you to join me as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So as we get started today, are there any agenda adjustments from commissioners? Hearing none. Is there somebody trying to say something? Or just rattling their? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the announcements. And I will ask our clerk, Monica Toomer, to read the announcements.
Good evening. I will now share the announcements for the June 14th meeting. Durham County Library Summer of Learning. Durham County Summer of Learning begins June 14th through July 30th and is open to all ages. This summer, they have partnered with Book Harvest to provide free book bundles to pre-K through tween participants. Also, in partnership with DPS, meals will be available at the library for anyone under the age of 18. Those details are as follows. The main library, Monday through Friday, June 14th through August 6th, from 12 noon to 1 p.m. North Regional Library, Tuesday through Friday, beginning June 15th through August 6th, 12 noon to 1 p.m. And Bragtown Branch Library, Tuesday through Thursday, beginning June 15th through July 29th, from 12 noon till 2 p.m. For more details on this year's Summer of Learning, please visit www.durhamcountylibrary.org/Summer of Learning. Or you can also contact Scott Frawley at rfrawley@dconc.gov. Are you behind in rent due to COVID-19? The Durham Emergency Rental Assistance Program is here for you. Visit www.durhamerap.dconc.gov to learn more. Also, to learn about the requirements and to apply today. For questions, please call 919-560-8000 and select option 7. Durham Chapel Hill Carborough Metropolitan Planning Organization seeks public comment on transportation needs analysis. If you're interested in highway, bicycle, multi-use paths, and transit projects for our region, you're invited to give your feedback now on an assessment of future transportation needs. Residents and other stakeholders are asked to view the deficiency and needs analysis at www.dchcmpo.org and provide comments by email to Andrew Henry no later than Wednesday, June 30th. Andrew's email is andrew.henry@durhamnc.gov. Drowning in bills. Community health coalitions can help. If you live in Person, Durham, Granville, or Orange County, we can help pay your utility bills. For more information, please call 919-470-8680, email contact@communityhealthcoalition.com, or visit www.communityhealthcoalitions.com/utility-assistance. Lastly, help us save lives by donating blood on June 15th. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to a sharp decrease in blood donations. Come out to the Durham County Department of Public Health on Tuesday, June 15th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. to donate blood and help save lives. Please visit www.donate.thebloodconnection.org. Again, it's www.donate.thebloodconnection.org, and use sponsor code 6347 to schedule an appointment. I do realize there were a lot of emails and websites, so this information can also be found on the Durham County website as well as in our agenda packet. That concludes the announcements, unless any commissioners have any additional announcements to share.
Commissioner Lum. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lum, go ahead.
I would just like to wish you, Chair Howerton, a very happy belated birthday. I hope you had a wonderful celebration.
I did. Thank you so much. Thank you. I had fun, and I will continue it for the rest of the month. I like to really celebrate that, you know, God still gives me breath and energy, and that I'm still here. So thank you. I have a couple that I'm going to read that we didn't get anything from the community, but I want to acknowledge a couple of things. June is LGBTQ plus month, and we didn't get anything. So, Commissioner Burns, you got something?
No, I had my hand up. I was like, so Netta got the birthday, you got that one. And I was gonna say, could we do a proclamation later? But no, go for it.
You have a proclamation you want to do? That's
yeah,
fine.
I think we should before the month is out. I mean, we don't have another working session, but that was what I was gonna say. You know, it's Black Music Month, it's LGBTQ month, and Netta is the only one, I think right now her background shares it. And we did it during a working session, but not a regular session. So that was my only suggestion, but you got it.
So if you'd like to do a proclamation, I will hold off on this and we'll do a proclamation.
No, go ahead. It's your birthday. I don't want to steal your thunder. Go for it.
Oh, no, this is not about my birthday. This is about the people in this community. So I'm going to put this aside and you do the proclamation. The other one that I have is about recognizing Juneteenth. We know that we did the resolution and the employees will have the day off, but I wanted to just acknowledge it, that on Friday, June 18th, Durham County employees offices will be closed in recognition of Juneteenth. Juneteenth marks the date, June 19th, 1965, when enslaved African Americans were told about the Emancipation Proclamation, which recognized and maintained the freedom of slaves. 2.5 years after its signing, Juneteenth is believed to be the oldest Black and African American holiday observance in our country, and takes pride annually throughout Durham and the nation with readings of the Emancipation Proclamation, prayer and worship activities, and more. As a paid holiday, this is an opportunity for county staff and residents to reflect on the impact of slavery, remember the contributions of the enslaved African Americans to the fiber of Durham community. There will be lots of activities going on the 18th and the 19th. And I'm sure that you will get emails, and others will be telling you about the different activities that will be happening. So if there are any other comments from commissioners? If not, we'll move on to our next item is the minutes. The board, you have before you the May 10th regular session minutes for approval. Are there any comments or any additions to those minutes? If not, we have a motion for approval.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes of our May 10th regular session meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Burns, second. Okay, clerk, we have a roll call.
Commissioner Alam,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye, approved 5-0. Okay, the ceremonial items. We have one ceremonial items, 210396. The 12th anniversary World Sickle Cell Awareness Day. Shine the light on sickle cell. The board is requested to proclaim June 19th, 2021 as World Sickle Cell Awareness Day. I'd like, Commissioner Burns, would you like to read that? And then after you read that, Tiffany Bell will have an opportunity to speak.
Yes, Madam Chair. Durham Board of County Commissioners. Proclamation, 12th Anniversary World Sickle Cell Awareness Day, Shine the Light on Sickle Cell 2021. Whereas sickle cell disease is an inherited blood disorder that causes pain, infection, disability, economic strain, and even death, primarily among African American children and adults. And whereas no definite cure for this disease exists, although treatment is available to help those with sickle cell disease lead more productive and rewarding lives. And whereas treatment of these conditions often requires both emergency department care and hospitalization. And whereas provisions of services is a collaborative effort between major medical centers, regional educators, counselors, community-based organizations, local health departments, and the state laboratory of public health. And whereas many healthcare professionals, regional educators, and community advocates do not receive adequate and current education about sickle cell disease, and whereas support for research on the treatment and management of this disorder, as well as overall awareness, are vital to improving the health and quality of life for persons with sickle cell disease. And whereas since 1973, the North Carolina Sickle Cell Syndrome Program has provided quality services throughout the state for patients. And whereas sickle cell experts and advocates from Durham University, Pi chapter of Chi Eta Phi sorority, are committed to improving the quality of care received by persons with sickle cell and sickle cell disease. And whereas since 2009, June 19th was officially designated as World Sickle Cell Awareness Day, the International Awareness Day is observed annually with the goal to increase public knowledge and understanding of sickle cell disease and the challenges experienced by patients and their families and caregivers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brenda Howerton, Chair of the Durham Board of County Commissioners, on the behalf of the Durham Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2021 as World Sickle Cell Awareness Day in Durham, North Carolina, this the 14th day of June 2021.
Thank you. Ms. Bell? Comments? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chairwoman Howerton and members of the board. My name is Tiffany Bell, and I'm the health educator, transitional coordinator for the Duke Medical Sickle Cell Program. On behalf of my directors, Dr. J.J. Strauss and Jennifer Rothman, colleagues, patients, and community advocates, I would like to thank you now more than ever for your continued support and shining the light on sickle cell disease. America has experienced a lot of difficulties and losses this past year. Unfortunately, I have had to now continuously speak to African American communities, my community, about COVID-19, the pros and cons of taking the COVID vaccination, and how vaccination hesitation is placing our patients and their families at a higher risk. The need to preserve Black lives is more heightened in everyone's awareness now more than ever. This is why constant education about this disease and receiving the vaccination is imperative for our our patients, and now and in the future. We are seeing still people of color, specifically African American men and women, struggling with wounds of historical trauma. This is felt in every socioeconomic level in communities, specifically regarding education, housing, and medical care. Typically in September, we honor Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and the North Carolina State Sickle Cell Program and area medical centers collaborate to provide a planned annual conference which to open to patients and their families and supporters. COVID postponed these plans last year. In spite of our new norm, we have chosen to take our cause and shine the light on sickle cell with the community on June 19th. The event will take place in downtown Durham, and we will be in collaboration with Spectacular Magazine's annual Juneteenth celebration to educate the community while still following CDC guidelines of social distancing. We are so now giving this call to action in hopes to reaching the community. This is the first step of many collaborative events and will set the stage of how we continuously shine a light on sickle cell awareness. Our goal is to engage patients and their families and educate the community about this disease. By accepting this proclamation, we promise to continue educating our patients, families, and the community of Durham. Again, we immensely thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bell, for bringing this proclamation to us. We appreciate that, just heightening the knowledge and concern about this issue. Commissioners, comments? Any comments from commissioners? Mr. Jacobs?
I just want to acknowledge Tiffany. You have brought this proclamation to us for many years, and I just really appreciate your efforts to educate the community about this disease and your advocacy. And it's really exciting to hear about the partnership and what you'll be doing as part of the Juneteenth celebration. So just want to acknowledge you and the staff and all of your great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any other hands. So again, thank you, Tiffany, and I look forward to seeing you out there on the 19th. And as Commissioner Jacobs said, thank you for your continued work. This is a conversation that people don't have a whole lot these days, but it's still a serious issue.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so commissioners, we are at our consent agenda, and that is a long agenda. A lot of consent items that we have discussed, and I am going to turn that over to our interim manager, Hager, to go through and decide how she wants to do this.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. I hope that you are well. I know y'all so enjoyed me reading each and every one of these items at the last meeting. So I'm going to spare you from reading all of the ones that we went through, but we'll point out a few things. And we do have 5 that we did not discuss at the meeting last week. And so I will read those 5. I do need to pull item number 21-0339. That's the extension of contract with Southern Repair Services for COVID homeless housing. We just need to make a modification to the contract. So we'll do that and bring that back on the 28th. If the board will allow, I will read the new items that we have and see if there are questions. The first one is item number 21-0387. It's the North Carolina State Department of Transportation request to abandon maintenance of 0.91 mile section of Sur Road 1680 Lake Mickey Dam Road. And so if I can get, if there are any questions on that one. All right, I will move to the next one. It's 21-0388, service contract approval for $243,720 in funding to BU Cafe and Eat North Carolina partner to continue serving home delivered meals to food insecure families and seniors. Okay, I'll move to the next one. 21-0390, service contract approval for $52,500 to Farmer Food Share to create food boxes for emergency food agencies to support food insecure families. Okay, the next one is 21-0397, to authorize county manager to sign the consent letter for the approval of minor HVAC and parking lot renovations at the Lincoln Health Community Center under $500,000 using the federally awarded American Rescue Plan Act grant. The next one is 21-0400, Durham County temporary COVID-19 screening. This supports this staff contract amendment totaling in addition of $121,588. I may have skipped one. Let's see. So which one did I skip? For?
Interim Manager Hager, would it be 0380?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Yeah.
That one, that's right. That was out of the last 5 grouping. I knew we had that one. That's 21-0380, approval of budget ordinance amendment number 21 BCC 0115, appropriating $270,101 of general fund balance, and contract approval for Re-City Network, the fiscal agent for Cates Corner, to provide summer learning camps to support Durham Housing Authority communities. Okay. Commissioners, I have read all of the consent items. And again, we did spend some time in our last meeting with all of the others for our public who may not have had a chance to hear that, but we did spend time talking through the others.
Commissioner Jacobs and then Commissioner Burns. Are there items that you'd like to pull?
Yeah, Madam
Chair, I just have a quick comment. I think this was historic that we had about 40 pages of consent items. And I just want to acknowledge it because it really reflects a tremendous amount of work on behalf of our county staff. When you look through, it was more than 40 consent items, and it's really all of the contracts and all of the work in many, many departments. I'm just really proud of so much that is a part of the consent item. Claudia, we didn't want to make you read through all 40 pages again, but I just really want to acknowledge there are so many important things that are in here that are also a reflection of partnerships that we have with nonprofits who are helping us with food and with housing and with student learning. And again, I hope that people will take time to look through the items because there is a lot to celebrate in this consent agenda. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
Yeah, along those same lines, for me, I'm all about interconnectivity. And I just, over the year that that you all have worked on it, and the 6 months that Commissioner Lama have had the opportunity, and I will make this a quick comment. I do not think that people see how much the investment the county has made, that has really made some of our nonprofits and some of our restaurants more resilient. Everybody's buying up property downtown, but if people will take some time to look at this agenda, we are extending the lease that we have with the senior center. That is huge. When everybody else is trying to get rid of things, we've maintained that space. The other thing I want to highlight, as we sit here and we talk about restaurants and we talk about how many Black businesses were closed downtown and how many were closed in the county, there were restaurants last year I can remember that really stepped up to the plate before we even asked them to do so. And one of them was BU Cafe. I can think specifically during Halloween when I was working on a candy drive. Matter of fact, Ashley Canada Fieldside working on a candy drive. And I said, hey, can I put this box in your restaurant? And that was the day that I actually walked in. And what did I see? It was all the chairs were moved out. All the chairs were actually moved out because they had started an assembly line and they were fixing food for families, and they were working through that with COVID-19. So I'm happy to see that we're investing in this, and also that there's something to be said about even in food preparation being culturally competent. So I appreciate that we have him at the table, but it also shows what happens when you get a food security coordinator who understands this space. So I just want the community, I kind of sort of echo along with Commissioner Jacobs. You didn't get to see this, but look at how much we've done. And the fact that this company stepped up and they've now expanded in the box yard. So there were some opportunities created through COVID. And I want people to know that the county is behind them as they seek to pivot. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns and Commissioner Jacobs. Are there any other questions from or comments from commissioners? If not, and I too want to thank Claudia and the staff for working with us behind the scenes, the areas, the work that the citizens don't see, that and the work that we're doing so that we don't drag our meetings out till midnight, that you as a citizen decide they don't want to watch city longer. So we try to make sure that we do our work behind the scenes so that we come prepared to not drag the meetings out, but to make sure that the information that we need to approve is there. So thanks again to the staff and to our interim manager here. So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda except for 210339. I get a motion from commissioners.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Carter, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Have a verbal vote by the clerk.
Commissioner Alon,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
and Chair Howerton.
Aye. It's approved. Consent agenda approved by 5-0. Okay, the next item is the interim is, what is the number here? I'm skipping something. 210339, the adoption of FY 2021-22 budget ordinance, and the interim manager presents our annual budget ordinance to the Durham County Board of Commissioners for approval. I'll ask Claudia, she'll take it from here.
Working with a couple of computers. I know y'all know how that is.
Okay.
Commissioners, I know that this is a place in our calendar year that we all look forward to, because it is a time that we get to pass the budget. I am I'm grateful for the support that the board has given staff throughout this process. And I am most pleased with the leadership that the budget department director, Keith Lane, and his staff have done throughout the process, which started in the fall with us making some tough decisions about what if scenarios if we had to reduce the budget by a certain amount, because at that time we weren't quite sure where we were going to land. I am also appreciative for our other departments, our finance director, our GMs, and again, all of the employees that have been a part of this journey. The budget ordinance is within your materials, and we will entertain any questions, but Chair, I will turn it back to you and the board for questions and comments, because for us, we're ready to cross the finish line.
I know you are. Thank you, Claudia.
You're welcome.
So, commissioners, are there comments or questions from the board at this time? Okay, no questions? Okay, that looks good.
Commissioner
Okay,
Carter
is there-
actually has her hand raised.
Okay, Commissioner Carter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make some brief comments about the budget, our most important policy, discussion and decision really throughout the year. So if that would be all right, I'd like to just make a few brief comments.
Certainly.
Thank you. Well, I want to start by thanking our residents who followed our budget process and reached out to us with much needed input in record numbers this year. I also want to thank our staff across all of Durham County government for the massive amount of work that goes into preparing our budget. And as ever, I especially thank the members of our budget department, Keith, and I'd like to say their names: Keith Lane, David Ades, Anna Hawksworth, Matthew Hunt, Shannon Wright, Jonathan Yeomans, and Bethany Shoemaker. Their tireless work helps ensure that our expenditures line up with our county's values. And I also want to thank my commissioner colleagues for the robust discussions that are part of the annual budget preparation and for working together toward consensus in this budget. I'd like to say a special thank you to Interim Manager Hager for ongoing communication with us about our individual concerns and questions, and also for guiding productive conversations on critical policy issues, even as there are points of difference among us at times and totally shared values at other times. So there are many, many elements of this budget that are noteworthy. I'm just going to mention a couple. First of all, I just think that the additional amount of funding we're giving to Durham Public Schools is excellent. We're within, I think that we are within reach of full funding of the budget that the school board made if we look across all of our funding streams with this additional amount of county funding that we're providing. It will include about $1.2 million for public health nurses for schools, and we know that these are key providers of many health services, including a primary source of mental health care for our youth. I think we now need to commit to a 3-year plan, not tonight, but I think we need to work towards a 3-year plan to phase in the addition of nurses to achieve the goal of 1 per school and to come closer to meeting the recommended nurse to student ratio. And this also will include an appropriation of $6 million for ongoing capital and maintenance needs, which does meet the Board of Education's full request. So that's really great. I also wanted to mention the low-income property tax assistance program. We fought hard for this last year and are thrilled to offer this to our residents this year. It will replace the deferred loan program, which residents really didn't participate in. We know that many low-income homeowners in neighborhoods that are gentrifying are being pushed out of their homes, losing that source of wealth and connection to community because their taxes have increased at a disproportionately high rate. This new program will help slow gentrification and help families build wealth through homeownership. I also wanted to mention that there is $1 million that will be appropriated for additional mental health services coming in the next couple of months. So it's not officially included in this budget, but it will be spent this year for mental health services, restricted for mental health services. So there are many more areas of the budget that are strong, and I'm sure others might want to highlight a few, but I'm going to stop with those. But I did just want to say a few words about a couple of areas where I feel like the budget fell short this year. This budget cycle, we heard from many Durham residents who don't feel comfortable calling the police and sheriff when their safety is threatened, who've had traumatic experiences interacting with armed law enforcement during mental health crises, and who have felt unsafe when encountering an armed officer for a traffic stop or animal services incident. We received over 100 poignant written expressions of this. Our current system across the U.S. is not keeping all people safe or meeting their needs, and is perpetuating harm through police violence and systemic racism. I also heard from many people weighing in about the sheriff's budget whose greatest concern is gun violence, and I share this concern. I believe that we can address all the concerns by reimagining our approach to public safety. National studies show that police currently spend very little of their time addressing violent crime, about 4% on average, according to a New York Times article. Instead, much of their time is spent on tasks like responding to mental health crises, homeless outreach, traffic incidents, situations that could be better served in many cases with a trained mental health professional or an unarmed agent. Many localities are piloting models of safety response that use these unarmed responders, and in so doing are able to shift positions away from their police and sheriff's department, as officers are no longer responsible for these duties. I see this approach as aligned with the goal of reducing gun violence, because it unburdens law enforcement from other duties and allows them to shift their focus to responding to violent crime. Traditionally, we have invested heavily in law enforcement as our singular strategy for violence prevention. We need to look beyond policing as our only solution to violence and invest in other evidence-based practices for violence reduction and policies that foster well-being and stability. I support the county taking the initial steps toward these new models of public safety, and advocated for moving 5 officer positions out of the sheriff's department and using those positions in a pilot of unarmed mental health crisis response. To be clear, this would not affect funding for treatment of opioid addiction or mental health services inside the detention center, which I fully support, nor would it affect the crisis intervention training officers receive. These services must remain. They are very, very important. But we did not reach a consensus for moving any positions out of the sheriff's budget this cycle. I know the leaders and advocates who organized for a better system will be disappointed in this, but I am hopeful that we are building momentum towards future progress, because this work is urgent and a different, more humane approach to public safety is possible, and we must all continue charting this brave new path forward together. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. And if there are nothing else from other commissioners, I have a couple of things I want to say as well. Go ahead, Commissioner Jacobs. I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to preempt you if you wanted to speak first, or would you rather prefer to go last?
I'll go
last. I don't want to
last.
interrupt you. Okay. I just wanted to also, I have some written comments that I'm not going to read them all now. I will submit them to the clerk as part of the public record. But I also wanted to acknowledge our adopting together our first budget together as a board tonight. And I also want to acknowledge all of the hard work that has gone into this from the staff and also from members of our community that have provided us so much input and letting us know their priorities. And, the budget, as we've discussed before, is a moral document. It is a reflection of our priorities and values and tough choices that we make on how to spend public dollars and best invest in the many needs of our community. And I really want to acknowledge especially the outstanding work of our interim county manager, Claudia Hager, and our budget director, Keith Lane. Claudia has worked tirelessly to foster communication and collaboration between commissioners, county staff, and community members. And Keith and his budget staff have worked so hard to provide detailed responses to commissioner questions and additional information that has been requested through the budget process. And I really appreciate the efforts that our Claudia, Keith, and our staff have made to incorporate priorities from commissioners and also community members in creative solutions to incorporate them into this final budget. I'm very excited about, there are a lot of good things in this budget. I first want to acknowledge some of the things that were in the recommended budget. Commissioner Carter referenced the tax grant program that we fought for last year and that people in our community have been advocating for a long time. The $5.4 million to invest in our staff for 3% cost of living adjustment and also re-implementation of merit pay increases. I'm so grateful to our staff who day in and day out through the pandemic have been providing vital services to people in our community. And also I want to highlight the 2 additional positions to support the work of our racial equity officer underway to transform the culture, policies, and decision-making in Durham County government. And I want to celebrate the revisions that our board, along with the help of our staff and thanks to community input, that we have incorporated into this final budget that reflect intentional and increased investments in the people of our community. And as Commissioner Carter referenced, the increased funding for Durham Public Schools. And I'm very excited about the vision of a school nurse and a social worker in every Durham Public School that we hope we can accomplish in the next 3 years. We've increased our investment in Durham Pre-K by $250,000 to add to the more than $5.7 million of funding for our Durham Pre-K, Early Childhood Action Plan, and other investments in our children and our families. We're increasing our funding for Durham Tech's Back to Work and Back on the Bulls initiative by $175,000 for a total investment of $675,000 to address the disparate impact of the pandemic on low-wage workers of color and to put Durham residents first in line for the good-paying jobs in growing sectors in Durham County. We're increasing funding for our Durham Open Space and Trails grant program that helps support community-rooted organizations and their efforts to improve neighborhoods and the quality of life for our residents. Jointly funding the refugee coordinator with the city to help all of our community members feel welcome, valued, and connected to resources. And I am super excited about our funding for implementation of the Master Aging Plan, which I hope that the city of Durham will join along with so that we can address the needs of our growing senior population. But like Commissioner Carter, I do want to acknowledge what is not in this adopted budget at this time. I support the vision of community members who want to see a reallocation of resources and investments to address community wellness and safety needs. And I look forward to the Community Wellness and Safety Task Force coming forward with recommendations. In this budget, there is funding for an update of a study of our current crisis response system. And our staff is already planning to bring back recommendations to our board in January and February to continue this conversation. It is a personal priority for me that we make decisions about reallocation of resources to non-law enforcement crisis response and increase investment in equitable access to behavioral health services. We currently fund 186 law enforcement positions and 231 positions for the detention center within the budget of the Office of the Sheriff. And within these positions, there are currently 66 vacancies. At the same time, we provide funding for 3 positions for our community paramedicine program, mobile integrated health unit, 1 director and 2 paramedics who each work a 12-hour shift. So we have 1 community paramedic on duty who helps respond to opioid overdoses, connect people to treatment, and make mental health referrals. I believe that ensuring we have trained professionals best equipped to respond to nonviolent mental and physical health 911 calls will free up our law enforcement professionals to focus on the violent crime they are skilled and best equipped to respond to in our community. So I look forward again to receiving the update from the 911 crisis response system study. And I've also requested an analysis of our 911 calls, an assessment of county funding for our 911 call center and sheriff 911 system, as well as an understanding of the operational and personnel costs of the detention center that will help guide our deliberations over the coming months. As Commissioner Carter mentioned, I'm proud of that our board is investing $1.15 million in our MAT medically assisted treatment program to provide opioid addiction treatment for detainees and those released from jail. But I believe our overarching goal must be on preventing people from ending up in our criminal justice and jails in the first place. We must invest upstream in the mental and physical health needs of our residents and address issues like poverty that are at the root causes of violence. When someone calls 911 in our community, I want to make sure that the person who shows up to help them is the appropriate person for that crisis need. And I look forward to our board making informed decisions about these priorities in the years ahead. And lastly, I want to thank my fellow board members for your insight and input as we work together to make tough decisions on the allocation of our precious and finite public resources. I want to acknowledge the continued partnership with Durham City government and Durham Public Schools. The vision of a preschool program, a social worker, and a school nurse in every school is a reflection of this partnership, as is our tax grant program and the expansion of Bull City United Violence Interruption Program. We have limited resources and vast unmet needs in our community. While we are fortunate to have about $15 million in new tax revenue, we had more than $30 million in requests for this funding. It is critical that we have the data, ask the tough questions, and make well-informed decisions about effective use of public funds for identified priorities and needs. And in this budget, we are allocating about $23 million in fund balance and $4.5 million in ARPA funds to make additional investments in our community. This leaves about $57.5 million in ARPA funds that we can allocate through 2024. I look forward to seeing the results of this budget's investments and future conversations about strategic ways we can invest our public funds for the transformative change we seek to ensure health and well-being for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Anyone else? So commissioners and for the public, I'm not going to quote a lot of numbers for you tonight. You can get those as on the website as we put the budget out, but I am going to just read a quick statement here. First, I want to sincerely appreciate Durham County employees, the essential workers to Durham County, and the Durham community at large for your collaboration and coordination as we navigated through the worst parts of the COVID pandemic. Your perseverance and sacrifices are not lost by me. You ensured the community was safe, able to get food and supplies when needed, able to get from here to there, all while having to take care of yourselves and your families. We owe you a debt of gratitude. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. You have been the true superheroes in this saga. Secondly, I'd like to share a few words about the budget. Despite the challenges of getting on the other side of this pandemic, we met with so many needs, and also currently in a leadership transition. I believe we put together a budget that reflects shared principles around valuing employees for their work and service. This budget supports our greatest assets, our employees. I am grateful there is funding to support a 3% cost of living salary adjustment and the dollars for an annual merit pay increase. There are significant increased investments to support education, including over $14 million for Durham Public Schools and over $900,000 for Durham Technical Community College. This budget also funds additional positions in key areas that have increased service demands from the overall population growth. Our community is growing. Over the years, from the impact to the community due to COVID-19 pandemic, there are so many other areas that could be highlighted, but due to time restraints, I will not address them all. This is one priority that requires work over the next several months, and you've heard again, over and over again about mental health, and this study and doing the mapping that needs to be done. This is a funding allocated to support mental health services. Now more than ever, we must identify approaches to improve behavioral health services in this community. I look forward to the staff's recommendation mid-year on a comprehensive approach for additional investments beyond current funding levels. I'd like to thank the board for their support during the budget development process. We made many tough decisions, and I am proud we came to consensus on important strategic investments that continue to make Durham County a thriving community. With that, commissioners, I would like to entertain a motion and a second to approve.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Seconded.
By Ms. Commissioner Burns, second by Commissioner Alam. And can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Alam,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye, budget is Ordinance approved, 5-0. Thank you. So we have one other item. Commissioners, we have a discussion 210391. It's a discussion of Durham's Recovery and Renewal Task Force and Discovery Durham's funding request and approval of budget ordinance amendment number 21BCC00116, allocating $239,700 to support funding request. We have Susan Amy, President of CEO of Discovery Durham, to begin this conversation.
Thank you, Chair Howerton and County Commissioners. Good evening. Thanks for having us. Interim Manager Hager and other staff. We appreciate you having us here to consider the proposals that we're bringing. Chair Howerton has introduced me. I want to introduce three other people who are here with me in support of these. Becky Bolton, who is General Manager of the Durham Convention Center. Sherry DeVries, who's Executive Director of the Durham Arts Council. And Leonardo Williams, who, along with his wife Zweli, is owner of Zweli's Restaurant and very active in the Durham hospitality community. I'm going to introduce these initiatives, and then we'll ask them to say a few words. In light of the, sorry, I am a little hoarse with a little bit of a cold right now. But in light of the extreme losses that have been suffered by hospitality businesses in Durham and the thousands of jobs that have been lost, the proposal that we put forward is to support 3 projects, and we feel like they're a good down payment on actions that help the businesses recover. And I know we've sent you information already, but so I won't go through everything, but would love to hit some of the highlights for you and just explain this. I think visitors in Durham are a lot less visible than in some cities. Visitors are obvious in Myrtle Beach or if you're in Orlando. But before the pandemic in Durham, there were 12.5 million visitors who came in 2019. That's based on a national survey methodology that is used to measure them. And our visitor community needs rebuilding if we want our hospitality businesses to be able to rebuild. So I'd like to go into a few of the details, and I'm going to share my screen here. Just a moment. There you are, and let's see. All right, does that look okay? Oh, you probably see.
It does. It's fine.
All right, very good. So this gives you a little bit of information on the economics of the visitor economy in Durham. There was almost $1 billion in direct visitor spending BC before COVID. That generates about $106 million in state and local taxes and supports about 13,000 jobs. If you break the amount of spending that visitors make in Durham down by household in Durham, it offsets $836 per household annually. What that means is, visitors come to town, they pay these taxes, and then they leave. They don't take advantage of all the services that they help provide. So without visitors, each household in Durham would have to pay $836 per household to make up for that amount of funding that would be lost. This slide shows a little bit about the loss for hospitality, and I know you all have seen this, but restaurants, bars, and hotels saw some double-digit losses over the course of the pandemic, where all the other sectors, when you roll them together, were up almost 8% in revenue. The other factoid that I think is really fascinating is that leisure and hospitality jobs were 11% of the jobs in North Carolina before the pandemic, and by the end of 2020 had made up 75% of the job losses. Now those jobs have started to come back, and in fact there is right now difficulty hiring enough people to work in hospitality, but we're going to talk about that in just a minute. This is looking at Durham hotel occupancy. And interesting to see what's happening here. The two green lines were 2018 and 2019. The red line that falls so precipitously, of course, was 2020. And that orange line is where you start to see what's happening right now. So as of April, occupancy had increased over last year. So it's on the way up, but it's not going to get back up to where it was before the pandemic without some kind of support. We have to have visitors back in Durham. One of the things, this may seem like a purely economic issue for Durham, and this is all about economics, but it is also about the community value of shared prosperity. The campaigns that we run, the work that we do, we spend a great deal of time very intentionally on making sure that we're supporting hospitality businesses that are owned by people of color, by women, by members of the LGBTQ community. At the beginning of the pandemic, we created a database of Black-owned businesses and that have featured 200 businesses, this says here. It's been one of the most visited pages on our website ever. Has been truly important during the pandemic to make sure that we are spotlighting hospitality businesses across Durham. We recognize that people of color are overrepresented in the hospitality workforce by about 10 points versus the breakdown in the general population. So just want you to know that in promoting hospitality businesses, we're also very thoughtful about how we promote businesses owned by people from Durham who have put life savings into these businesses to make them happen. And there's so many people for whom this is their family's sole source of or primary source of income. So let's talk a little bit about hospitality workforce development. It's one of the 3 proposals. We just did a survey of hospitality business owners in Durham, and 79% of them said that recruiting staff is very or extremely urgent. And you've heard this on local, state, and national news, no doubt, that filling positions has been a real challenge. Employers are saying that this is their number one challenge, even more than having the financial resources, which is certainly important after a year like they have had. That being able to hire enough workers to be able to fully reopen is a real challenge. And I know Becky will be able to talk about this later. It's the same for the convention center. And I know that Leonardo from Zwelly's has a lot of positions he's working to fill also. And one of the things we need to do to help these businesses recover first is help them in staff recruitment. And this proposal is about trying to do that. Our concept here is to do 2 job fairs. We also want to take this opportunity to improve work environments and rates of pay, or encourage employers to pay living wages. So our first job fair is going to happen in July and is going to focus on food and beverage, and will focus on businesses, companies they're paying $13 an hour or more, and who offer benefits for their employees. So this is a way for us to help the businesses bounce back, and also demonstrate how creating better work environments and pay scenarios will help them be more successful. The program also includes some training and communication, helping employers with retention as well as in recruitment. The total cost for this program is $33,500. We've been able to keep the cost down because we're collaborating with the hospitality programs at North Carolina Central, at Durham Tech. We're working with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, with the city, and with the County Economic Development Department. So first hurdle for hospitality certainly is being able to refill jobs. The second piece that needs to happen is that we need to bring back leisure travelers. In the travel world, business travelers are going to be a little slower to come back. Meetings and conventions are a little slow to come back, but people are already out traveling for leisure. And it's really important that Durham be able to compete This is some information from a national study on people's attitudes about travel. I'm actually out of town right now and was amazed to find that the airport was packed, even in the middle of the week. So there are lots of people getting out there. The issue is that Durham competes for visitors the same way any business competes for customers. And if you watch television and look at a lot of different other channels also, Asheville is advertising heavily in Durham for us to go to Asheville. Charlotte is advertising heavily. The beach communities are advertising here. So there are a lot of communities trying to attract Durhamites to visit them. We need to be attracting visitors to come to Durham to avoid losing our share of that market. Discover Durham does this is our job, to do leisure marketing. We have a campaign that's currently going, but our revenue is based almost completely on the occupancy tax that visitors pay when they stay in hotels, and that's what dried up last year. So our revenue will be down 56% for fiscal year 21, and it will be up next year, but it will still be 36% below what it was in 2019. That means that our ability to run major campaigns out of market to attract visitors is definitely curtailed. So our campaign it has been on digital channels only. It ends at the end of this month. And will have run for about 6 weeks. And next year we can cover about 8 weeks, which is just not anywhere near enough to help restore the volume that our businesses need to be able to recover. So the concept for this program is to expand that campaign to include TV broadcasts, video, billboards, to expand our reach across different markets, to add campaign analytics, which will allow us to see exactly what results it has gotten. And then it allows us to expand our content because we are filling more channels, and allows us to expand the number and diversity of the businesses that we can feature. The total cost for this program is $250,000. And as I'll talk in the very end, what we're asking is for the city and the county to split these amounts. Here on the left of the screen is some of the creative that gives you an idea about the Rediscover Durham campaign. And the last piece here is about groups and meetings, is about our business travel and helping to bring that back. And one of the issues that Durham faces, and there's a whole bunch more conversation we can have over time, but if you look at this looks at the amount of convention center space in some of our competitive markets in North Carolina. And you can see there's Charlotte on the left, followed by Raleigh and Greensboro, and you see Durham over there on the right. And as Becky can tell you, we've got about 33,000 square feet of convention center space in Durham. But we have 4 Durham venues co-located around one plaza, and we have several of us represented tonight. We have, as I said, Becky from the Convention Center. Randy McKay, who is the new president and CEO for the Carolina Theater, is very supportive of this project. Also, he was on a plane this evening and couldn't join us. We've got Sherry DeVries here from the Durham Arts Council, and then Wade Walcott, who's the director for Parks and Recreation, who oversees the Durham Armory, is also a part of this team who is supportive of this concept. And the concept here is, let's take some underutilized capacity across these 4 venues and promote them as a convention campus, or we haven't decided on what that name would be like. But this is an opportunity for us to do something that's really creative, to bring in larger groups and bring in groups that do different things like offer trade shows and exhibits. And what this does, it certainly helps these 4 venues that have been shut down for the last year. But even more than that, it brings in large numbers of visitors to Durham who would then frequent the hotels and restaurants and other businesses in Durham. So the amount of economic impact that it brings is far beyond what it brings to the 4 venues themselves. So what's needed for us to do this is some logistical work on aligning on the booking software and contracts. We need a potential client to see this as one seamless experience to book one campus. We've got some money in here for some really modest investments and some things that make it feel like more of a campus. Clearly, we need to name this. We need to provide some photography and branding and sales materials to allow us to go out and sell this. But the return on this concept could be huge. This is a look at what the revenue, this is just the convention center and what we expect could happen from a revenue standpoint. Those purple bars are what would happen anyway. When you look at the green and orange, red and orange bars, we're trying to do a good job from a financial standpoint. We looked at sort of a high, low, medium, and high level of assumption on how many people it would attract back. But when you run the financials on this, just the additional revenue to the convention center, which, as I think I imagine you all know, I don't know if you know all the details of these facilities, but the convention center is partly owned by the city and part by the county. The revenue that returns in 3 years just for the convention center more than pays for the amount of investment that would be required. Not even looking at all the other revenue that would come into the other venues and the other hospitality businesses. So I want to stop here for a minute, and we'll say one thing is that, again, the expectation would be, and the ask here is that the city and the county split the cost of these proposals 50-50. The city manager has already signed up for a little more than 50% of the workforce development one out of her under her authority for spending. And then the other two proposals went to the city council on Thursday and were passed on the consent agenda. So they will go for a vote later this month. So we know that the city has signed up for their portion of it. And so our hope is that you all will see the value in these and be willing to support the other half of these. But I want to turn it over and let Becky, Sherry, and Leonardo are going to say just a few words about these. Becky?
Hi, thanks everybody for the opportunity to speak to you today. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to tell you about our ideas and recovery coming out of the pandemic. We see this project as a recovery effort. As you know, the events have been all but eliminated over the last year. We've slowly been scraping, clawing our way back to hosting again. But you know, our workforce has been in Durham almost, I would say, decimated. It's people trying, if you go downtown, you'll see all the restaurants have help wanted signs in the windows, and people just trying to get people back to work to bring back the business. One of the things that the restaurants and the hotels really rely on is the impact of the conventions that we bring into town. We've worked over the last 5 or 6 years to entirely focus on drawing conventions to our facility, and as you know, we're limited on space. So what you can fit into a 33,000 square foot convention center is, you know, about 200 people when you take into consideration the components that typically come along with a convention. Those being a general session room, meeting rooms for breakout sessions, meal rooms, and exhibits, which is typically the trade show component, and all of those require separate spaces. Sometimes we can get creative and do a general session that also plays as the meal room, which can be logistically challenging and drive costs. But we've come up, you know, along the way, we've worked with our partners, Sherry, at the Durham Arts Council, with the Armory, and with the Carolina Theater, to collaborate and find ways that I could say, do you have space available on this date? Do you have, you know, and we work through the process of trying to, the convention center books all the other venues, and then we try to spin it and then put it in one contract and deliver it to a customer. think about it from a meeting planner's perspective. When they go to Charlotte, there's one point of contact that can book all their hotels, book all of their space, book all of their entertainment attractions, evening events. Everything is it's a turnkey approach. And when they come to Durham, they've got to sign 4 contracts, and that's just for the venues. It doesn't include the hotels. So if they book 3 hotels, that's 7 contracts they could potentially be booking just to fit into a 33,000 square feet. Well, this would be 60,000 square feet. So the idea of the concept is that we could expand the footprint from a convention planner's perspective, double. So we go from 30,000 square feet to about 60,000 square feet. We can create a turnkey approach where they can sign 1 contract, and we can have an internal process for us all working together. We can brand as one so that we interface as a united one unit, and create the opportunity to widen the range of our prospects. So now we can book people, groups that are bigger. When you look at Greensboro, Greenville, and Wilmington, all of those cities have convention spaces that are at least 3 times the size of ours, yet the population is comparable. And by doing this, it puts us in the game for some more pieces of business that we can pursue. And that's the part that we're good at, is the pursuit. Supporting local businesses. You'll hear more about the impacts that the convention center has, and convention business has. These are business people coming in, especially when you can have a trade show component, which is the part that we really struggle to offer. Those are people that have invested in building a booth, having it designed, paying for it to be shipped by freight to our convention center, and then sending their salespeople, flying them in to be sales representatives, staying over in hotels, entertaining convention attendees in our city, patronizing the restaurants, and really livening up the downtown core. The most important thing is a return to profitability. So by expanding our prospect base, by working together, by creating a user-friendly experience for the planner, we will be more quickly back to profitability. You may know that the convention center was profitable in fiscal year 2018 and 2019, and 2020 was slated to be our best year yet. We grew the convention business from $160,000 in revenue in 2015 to $820 in 2019, and we're going to do even better the next year. We know we can get back to that. This program will help us to accelerate the process.
Thanks, Becky. I appreciate that. Sherry?
Thank you, and thank you, Chair Howerton and County Commissioners, for having us tonight. I just want to emphasize what Becky was saying about the pandemic has wiped out our earned revenues on our facilities, in particular for Durham Arts Council and Carolina Theater. Arts venues across the country have been closed, as you know, I'm sure. We have been able to retain and build some revenues with virtual programming, but that's only a fraction of what we can develop with our facilities fully open. With the Durham Arts Council, our annual economic impact in a regular pre-COVID environment is about 10.1 million, and the Carolina Theater's economic impact annually is 6.9 million. So we're very strong contributors to the economy in Durham, and also supporting over 500 jobs between the two of us. What's really important to be able to recover from the pandemic is to be able to get our facilities operating and back online and generating revenue. In a normal pre-COVID environment, the Durham Arts Council has approximately 5,000 programs and events and meetings in our building, but we still have capacity available, particularly in the daytime, which is when a lot of the convention business would be looking for additional breakout space and programmatic space. And the Carolina Theater would be similar. with this new combined program with all the facilities working together, we could market and attract larger pieces of convention business to a joint facility in the center of downtown Durham. This would be particularly important in helping us to rebuild earned revenues. And through the Arts Council, we would also like to develop a program that would provide additional jobs for our very talented and creative local artists. We would like to be able to have a menu of options of additional entertainment and arts experiences that these larger conventions could book through this combined process. So that would be an economic driver for individuals and arts organizations even beyond our own operations. This, of course, would not impact our regular arts missions at Carolina Theater and Durham Arts Council. We would continue to do those in our normal fashion. But this combined proposal with the City Center complex would allow us to add a new layer of business on top of what we are already doing, and will be a first step in helping us to recover from the pandemic. And I'm sure Becky can tell you, these larger pieces of convention business, they book 2 and 3 years out. It's a long-term process to cultivate and book this type of business. And these visitors generate a lot of additional dollars in the community. And arts visitors specifically generate over $22 for every dollar invested in what they spend in the community in restaurants and hotels and other activities. So we hope you will support this proposal. We think it's a modest and very prudent step forward as we all try to recover from the pandemic.
Thanks, Sherry. Yeah, Sherry hit on a couple of things that I think are particularly important here. One is that one of the things Durham has going for it compared to other places that people could choose to have conferences is that we are such a creative community and such an entrepreneurial community. And the values of this community are especially attractive in a time when there is so much focus from a corporate standpoint on how to embrace the extra attention on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and being able to bring artists to the table as components of an experience that you could have in Durham, and the history that Durham offers, and the community values that Durham offers. I think all of this can come together to really support a lot of our businesses in Durham. So I think that's incredibly important, and the fact that the Arts Council is a part of this campus would mean a lot, would really differentiate Durham from a lot of the other communities. Something else that we want that Sherry touched on is just letting all of you know that in doing this and creating this campus, we don't detract from the missions of any of the individual venues or from their brands. This is about leveraging capacity that's underutilized right now, which to me makes this something of a no-brainer. If you can take publicly owned buildings and use them more effectively, utilize them at a higher rate to generate more business for our community, those are really positive things. So last person we'd like to have speak would be Leonardo, and we want someone here who can speak from the standpoint of a hospitality business owner, and then we'll stop and take any questions you have. Leonardo.
Hi there, everybody. Chairman Howardson and commissioners and colleagues, bosses. Pardon the noise, I'm in my restaurant. Prior to the pandemic, like everyone, we were booming, actually. In our third year, we started to see sales that were surpassing our 5th year trajectory. We had catering galore, and we were doing very well as a restaurant. When the pandemic hit, we lost 57 catering in one day. The next day, we lost all of what we had left, which is it was about I'd say about 60% of our revenue for the restaurant. Everything just stopped. No more indoor dining, and we had no idea what we were going to do. We unfortunately had, and I practically begged to be on this as an advocate of this. We had strategic partners in the community, such as churches, nonprofits, just community members that supported us and helped us do lots of community service engagement activities, sort of like what DU is doing. During the pandemic, we were amongst the community in exemplifying how we can come together and actually take care of one another. Just to recap, and we'll produce this, publish this later, we had over 450 volunteers prior to the pandemic and throughout the pandemic to feed the elderly and feed the homeless and feed the displaced. We raised about $30,000. We collected about 24,000 donated items. And we served about 49,672 meals out of this restaurant in collaboration with other organizations. And the work was, put out through their venues as well. One way that we were continuing to project what we were doing into the community was through Discover Durham as a strategic partner. So when it came to everything being shut down, we constantly got, correspondence from them. How are you doing? What can we do to help? And I don't know if we can say that happens in every city. Yes, their job is leisure, attracting leisure travelers, but they're actually doing a lot more than that. And we were products of that. Part of that, one of the initiatives was Durham Delivers. That was basically a way of us continuing to generate revenue during the pandemic by servicing or delivering meals home to communities. So we did what we had to do to survive. Now we're actually bouncing back. My restaurant is half full right now, and people are out enjoying themselves. But one of the issues that we're suffering with right now is we are hiring, and we can't really get folks into work right now. So part of that is what we're going to do in the private sector is just like people had an opportunity to rediscover themselves and reappreciate their value and realize that no one should get paid $7.25 an hour. We also had a chance to rediscover ourselves as a small business and a local investor. So we're paying ourselves a lot more. Twilly and I are about to make a significant investment in Durham. We're going to make an announcement for 50 jobs because we are making some new ventures, and I'll talk about that another time. A part of that is we're going to need to hire folks, and we're offering, $15 and up. We're going to offer, healthcare benefits. We're going to offer a 401k plan, and that's coming from a local small business. And part of getting folks hired is hopefully through this job fair that Discover Durham is going to offer. And one thing we don't have the resources to market the way a corporation the size of maybe Starbucks and Chili's or some other national chain may have. But one thing we do have is the abundance of our community, and that's residential as well as institutional, such as organizations like Discover Durham. And leveraging, our wonderful elected officials who are going to approve this tonight to getting us the David leverage resources that we're going to put out as well. So we are bouncing back, and we are gathering all of the resources that we need. The next thing we need are people, and part of getting those folks in here is projecting that out into our community. So we're bouncing back. We definitely could use the support in helping us to just be able to staff, and with the convention centers opening back up, they sometimes call on us to cater. So it's all inclusive, it's all working together, and we hope that we can continue to do just that. So thank you all for your time, and we're ready to work, we're ready to employ. We just need the capacity to do it.
Thank you, Leonardo. Well, as Chair Howerton said at the beginning, what we're asking is for the county to fund 1/2 of the proposals we put forward, which comes out to about $239,000. This is all about helping recovery in the community, of course. The task force, Recovery and Renewal Task Force, has been disbanded now, but before they did, they vetted each one of these proposals and offered a letter of endorsement, which I believe came to to all of you. I know it was sent to Chair Howerton. And so I know that we have the support of that group. But at this point, we'll stop and see if there are any questions that we can answer.
So thank you, Susan, Rebecca, Jerry, and Leonardo for an excellent presentation. Thank you for sending us the information beforehand so we had an opportunity to read it. So commissioners, we already extended 30 minutes for this item. There was 30 minutes. So if you have questions, please take no more than 2 minutes with your question. Given that we've already extended the time on this item. So if you have questions or comments. Commissioner Alum.
Thank you, Chair Howerton. Thank you so much, Susan, Rebecca, Sherry, and Leo for this presentation, and for all of your work that you guys have been doing to support the Durham community and Durham small businesses. I just would like to take a moment to also recognize that this isn't the first crisis that Leo has stepped up for the Durham community. And it is absolutely amazing to see how Leo and Zweli have both continuously stepped up with their restaurant to support the Durham community at large, through the McDougall Terrace crisis with the carbon monoxide detectors, when several residents were moved to hotels. Zweli's consistently provided meals to those families and has consistently provided meals to families during the pandemic and provided jobs. So I just wanted to highlight that and thank Leo so much for everything he does for Durham.
Thank you, Commissioner Lum. Commissioner Jacobs, and then it's Commissioner Burns.
I think Commissioner Burns had her hand up before me, so you go ahead and I'll go after you. Are you sure? Okay. Well, I just first of all wanted to thank you all. This was such an excellent presentation. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer, and this seems like pennies, really, compared to the importance of all of the sectors, hospitality and the arts and our convention center and everything. And I just want to acknowledge all of you for your leadership and your creativity, the collaboration. It's just amazing. I think that's what really sets Durham apart. This whole creative idea about, leveraging our resources for conventions is fantastic. And as Commissioner Alam said, Leonardo, you have been a leader in our community for a long time on so many issues. And I also want to acknowledge you joining with other small business leaders and pushing for us to create the Small Business Fund that we ended up creating, the Small Business Grant Program and Loan Program. That was, directly came from you and others. So my question is, in the timeline that we got, Susan, it was starting, I think, in April. So obviously we're in June now. So obviously, just wanted to hear a little bit more about the timeline and what you all are thinking, because we're kind of playing catch up, right?
Yes. For the hospitality workforce development program, we are moving forward with plans to do the first job fair, and we need the funding from the county to be able to do the second job fair and to be able to follow through with some of the training and material that we want to use to encourage employers to work on sustained improvement to work environments and sustained pipelines and good management practices that will help them retain their employees. So our intent would be to do the first job fair, as we said, in mid-July. I think it's the 13th or 14th of July, and then come back and do a second one in late August or early September. And then there will be some programs that are ongoing. In the case of the convention center campus idea, we would like to get that underway right now. As a matter of fact, in the background, we're trying to work on some of the logistical issues and booking issues that we talked about. But in terms of being able to complete the package and do some of the sort of signage and campus, provide some of the campus amenities, and then do the marketing, we would need funding to be able to move that forward. Our original intent was to have that in place by September 1st, and I think you're right. It's been delayed by a couple of months, so this would start to kick in around mid-fall. But we can start talking about it pretty quickly when we know that we can do it, and we start to put some of the initial pieces in place. As Sherry alluded, some meetings schedule themselves 2, 3, 4 years into the future, but we recognize that this market has been so dead for so long that we're expecting that some businesses will start to come back and start to book for possibly the fall, certainly in the spring. But we need a little bit of the runway to be able to be ready for that. And in the case of the Rediscover Durham campaign, as I said, we've already run it, been running a digital campaign, a smaller campaign. We would expand it. We should be able to be, if we are awarded funding now, we should be back by probably late July and early August with the rest of the campaign. And then it would continue through much of the fall.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
I'm happy that Commissioner Jacobs got it, because this is the second time y'all came to me with a timeline that wasn't where it was supposed to be, and the comms background in me was gonna jump up and down on you all a million times. But I still didn't hear it. I heard when all the campaigns were gonna stop. I would appreciate. I don't have any problem with the proposal outside of the timeline. For me, when I'm doing a comms program, time is money and things change. So I would appreciate an updated timetable, since it does say April and we are in June. I don't think that that's too much to ask for. The other thing I would say, and that was a big issue I had. Couple other things, because as far as you all promoting this event, I do understand that Wake County is doing the same thing. We have built so much in Durham. From not just downtown, but also when we think about the hub, when we think about BOCC, think about companies coming, when we think about the housing market. In order to get people to come back to Durham, I recognize that it's going to take some funding and some money. Leonardo, I am so happy to see you here, because I can't let folks throw a rock and hide their hand. Now, you remember when the pandemic first started, you and I were really upset that you were, so yes, you helped come up with that round table, but it was not without some pressure and some pushing. So for the community, I want everybody to know, it is not just, I talked about BU earlier, Commissioner Alarm talked about McDougal Terrace earlier. Leonardo Williams, absent of any help of anybody on this call, was completely left out of the conversation, and did the work anyway, and set up a roundtable anyway, and did the work anyway. And now I remember, because you were doing every day, you were like, what it's like to be a small business owner in the pandemic. I remember every day that you got up there and talked about how many catering jobs you lost. And I remember the long conversations that we had. So if nothing else, I have not seen you. I'm happy to see that the loud noise in your restaurant has to do with your resilience. It has nothing to do with anybody else. You and your wife have worked exceptionally hard, and it makes me feel better about this campaign to know that we have some small business owners at the table who can make sure that these messages are curated in such a way that your voices are represented. I do hope that we have other folks there who are not just restaurants, because there has been a lot that has come up. The one thing that makes me the most excited about, because you've advocated. I heard somebody earlier tonight lie and say they advocated for something in the budget they absolutely didn't advocate for, and I'm looking at an advocator right there in you. The one thing I was excited about, Susan, you brought it up. You stated, I had not even thought about this, but this is such a beautiful idea. That art center. I don't know how many times I've passed by the Armory, the Marriott, the art center, and actually the theater. And boom, that is a great place for us to have a festival. I said it's 4 corners. I had not even looked at it and thought about that. And so as we start to move forward, I mean, that is such a great space because we had Art of Cool. Other people are always looking for places to have festivals. And it's usually historically hard, especially for people of color, to have festivals because insurance is, but I think we can capitalize on that Four Corners. I had not seen that, so I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I look forward to advocating for that space, much like we advocate for some of these other spaces that have been built. But I can't wait to see what this campaign puts out. I remember you all came to us earlier about the COVID-19 campaign, and we pushed it. And then I was on 85, and I saw one of the signs that you all had developed. So same way I got excited that day, I look forward to get excited about this. And I just can't wait to see what you all do because I do want people to experience the Durham that I know. So thank you, ladies, and thank you, Leonardo.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioner
Commissioner Burns. And other questions, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Carter.
I'll just add my enthusiasm to the mix here. You guys clearly know how to recruit business, cultivate business, because you make a really good sale. And I think you made just a terrific case for this. You know, the return on the investment in multiple ways. Seems like if there were no other amazing benefit from it, that would be enough. The only question I have is related to the staff recruitment and giving priority to businesses that pay $13 an hour. I just was surprised more didn't pay $13 an hour or $15 an hour. And I know it's, you know, this a dynamic pushing, tug and pull, but if you pay more, maybe you could recruit better. You know, I don't know. Of course, you're trying to get your business back off, you know, the ground, and so I get the challenge, but I always wonder about that.
The full survey that we did, we asked the business owners about how much they were paying, and we were pleasantly surprised, actually, because I know that hospitality jobs get the rap as paying minimum wage or very close to it, and we were pleasantly surprised that so many of the jobs, I want to say it was about 50% paid $13 an hour or more, and so it was certainly moving in that direction, and business owners are starting to realize in this kind of tight economy where a lot of those workers have moved into other areas and other careers, that they will have to be more competitive to be successful. And us being able to work on this and put some concentrated time on it, one of the things we want to do is let business owners know what it's taking in this market to attract high quality workers. And frankly, I think what Leonardo's doing with his 401k and benefits and everything that he's doing is really setting a whole new bar for other businesses. And that's the kind of story we want to be able to promote.
I agree with that. That's a great point. And right, we can help shift the market ourselves through the work that Leo's doing, that kind of thing, and the work that you all can be doing through this workforce development part of your request. Anyway, I like the convention center campus better than going to a singular convention center. So that's a fantastic idea. I'm fully supportive of your request overall, just to cut to the chase and be short.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Carter.
So thank all of you for your presentation. Just want to say that I was in Charlotte this past week and they had a food festival and people were out. The hotel that I stayed was packed with people. So it's happening. And if it can happen in Charlotte, it can happen in Durham. So people are ready to get back out and travel and come to Durham as well. So if there are no other comments, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I move for approval of the request.
Second.
Who seconded? Who seconded?
It was a tie. It can go to Commissioner Alam.
Okay, it's moved by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Alam. We can have a verbal vote, please.
Commissioner Alam.
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye, it's approved 5-0. Thank you all. Sherry, Rebecca, Leonardo, and Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Next, commissioners, we have a closed session. The board is requested to adjourn into closed session to consider qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, condition of appointments, or condition of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee, or prospective public officer or employee, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by it or against an individual public officer or employee pursuant to GS 143-318.11A6. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved, Madam Chair.
It's moved by Commissioner Burns,
Seconded.
second by Commissioner Lum. The voice vote, please.
Commissioner Alam,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Thank you. 5-0. And I'd like to thank our residents and others for attending the virtual meeting tonight, and callers attending the closed session that have joined us. And we thank you for all your participation. And one of the most important things that we do is approve a budget tonight. So we are convening to closed session. decision, no action was taken. So I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Alum and Commissioner Burns motioned in second. Roll call.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
and Chair Howerton.
Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Aye.
Night.